Hi guys, welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to be taking a look at your body paragraphs for your report. So this is going to be different for your report and your proposal. So you're going to have two main body paragraphs in your report. Okay, paragraph 1 is going to be based on the first point in your instructions. You're going to be giving statistics. You're going to be reporting opinions on that point. And then you're going to do the same for paragraph 2, but about your second point in your instructions. So if we take a look at an example question, this is the same one that we've already looked at in the last few lectures. Okay, here's your question. I'm going to give you a minute or so. Take a look at the question, read it again, and I want you to choose the kind of 3 points that you can see. What are the 3 main points that you're going to be writing about? Okay, have a look, have a read, and then come back, pause the video if you want to read it, and then come back when you think you know what the points are, and we'll take a look. All right, off you go. Okay, hopefully you've had a look and you know what points you're going to be writing about. You should have chosen these points. Okay, so outline existing services, assess the accessibility and impact of the services, and make recommendations. So your recommendations paragraph is always going to be your final paragraph. That's your last paragraph. The other 2 body paragraphs are your other 2 points, existing services and the impact and accessibility. So that's what we're going to be writing about in this lecture. But before we start writing, something really important, planning. You need to plan. Okay, I've said this in another lecture before, but if you just start writing and you have no idea what you're actually going to include in the paragraph, you're just going to end up writing irrelevant information, which we know will give you a low content mark. Everything needs to be relevant for you to get a 5 for your content mark. So just spend 30 seconds just bullet pointing quick ideas of what you want to include in each paragraph. Okay, just make a few notes. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to do some brainstorming. I'm going to give you a minute to brainstorm a couple of mental health services that could be offered to students at a university, because that's the first point that we're going to write about. Okay, so you've got 1 minute. Again, pause the video and just write down like 3 services that could be offered by a university to help students with their mental health. Okay, you've got 1 minute. Pause the video now and come back when you're done. All right, off you go. Okay, so hopefully you've got an idea of what you want to include. You've got 2 or 3 points. These are just some existing services that I wrote down. So you could have a mental health phone line. You could have a text service where you get advice on mental health, maybe a personal tutor to help you. You could have a buddy system or maybe some workshops on coping mechanisms. Okay. You do not need to include 5 points. 2 is enough, probably, because because obviously these points are going to be limited because you need to make recommendations on them. So they need to be like things that aren't that good that you need to improve. So I would say 2 is enough, really. So to start writing then, there are a few different ways that you can lay out your report in terms of what your points are, or depending on what your points are. So the first way we could do this for this question is either to just have the existing services in paragraph 1 and describe the current state of those mental health services, and then use the second paragraph to talk about the accessibility and impact. So you're going to evaluate the services, add statistics, reports, opinions. You could do it that way. Or the second way, you could do 1 service for each paragraph, and within that paragraph you add statistics for each service, reported opinions, and look at the accessibility and impact. I would suggest the second way because it gives you more opportunity to use reported speech, to use statistics, and to use evaluative language. Okay, in the first one, you're just being descriptive for the first paragraph. You're not really adding in any issues or any reported opinions. So I would do it this way instead. Okay. So we're going to imagine that there's an emergency phone line and that there's mental health pamphlets or mental health leaflets, which are like mini little books. If you don't know the word pamphlet, it's like a little mini book of like 3 pages with information in. So we're going to use emergency phone line and mental health pamphlets to write the body paragraphs. And I'm going to show you an example of a paragraph that I've written for the emergency phone line. Okay, so let's take a look at this paragraph here. So currently provided by the university, the mental health support system includes an emergency phone line which operates with limited hours from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. It is the restricted availability of this service that has been noted as a critical issue, particularly because many students experience crises outside of these hours. In fact, a recent survey revealed that 70% of students would prefer access to support services beyond the current operational hours. Additionally, several students reported a reluctance to use the phone for discussing sensitive issues, suggesting a need for alternative forms of communication. Okay. So this is my example. Let's have a look at what this includes. Okay, so this should include all of the stuff that I've been banging on about in the previous lectures, all of the grammar points, all of the vocabulary points. It should include all of those. So let's take a look if I've included most of those. So statistics. Okay, 70% of students. We've got statistics to back up our argument. We've got reported opinions, so students reported a reluctance to use the phone. We've got participle clauses currently provided by the university, also down here as well, suggesting a need rather than which suggests. You're replacing a relative clause with participle clause. We've got a cleft sentence. It is the restricted availability of the service that has been noted. Okay, so you've got an it clause. And we've got linking words here. You've got additionally, you've also got in fact up here. So you've got linking words, cohesive devices, okay? Very important to include for your organisation mark. However, there is one thing missing. Can you spot what is missing here? I'll give you a few seconds, have a look. What have I not included here? You've got 5 seconds. You should have noticed the subheading, okay? Again, I've said this in a previous lecture. Always, always, always put a subheading for every paragraph. I see students do this time and time again where they're so focused on writing everything, they completely forget to put the heading, and you will get a lower mark for that. So make sure that you include a subheading. All right, so this is everything that you need to include basically in a body paragraph for a report. Obviously, it depends on the question that you get asked, what the content will be, but just make sure you're including statistics, reported opinions, try to get a participle clause, try to get a cleft sentence if you can, and linking words. Make sure you include linking words to connect your ideas together so that it flows well. All right, so this is like an ideal example of what you want to include. All right, now it's your turn to write a paragraph. You've got some ideas again here. You can either do it on pamphlets on mental health, a personal tutor, buddy system, workshops, whatever you want. You can write a paragraph on that. Pause the video, come back when you're finished, and then I'll show you another paragraph. Okay, if you're using Pear Deck, you can write on this slide. If not, just write on paper on your computer, whatever you want. But make sure you're including all of these things, okay? Statistics, reported opinions, participle clause, cleft sentence, linking words, all of those need to be included for one of these points, okay? So remember, you're inventing this, you're imagining, you've asked 1,000 students at a university if they've used this mental health system, is it any good, is it supportive, and you're reporting their opinions on it. Okay, so pause the video, go away, take a few minutes, write a paragraph, come back, and I'll show you a second paragraph that I wrote for one of these points here. All right, so pause the video now, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so hopefully you've written your paragraph then for your report. I'm going to show you another paragraph that I wrote for the mental health pamphlets here. All right, so this was my other paragraph. So additionally, starting with a linking word there, additionally, the university distributes mental health pamphlets intended to educate students on recognizing symptoms and accessing help. We've got a participle clause here. However, linking word, it has been observed, passive form, that these pamphlets are often not as useful as intended. Reported, another participle clause, reported by 65% of students, the content of the pamphlets is perceived, passive form, as too generic and lacking in practical advice. Furthermore, linking word, it is the lack of localized information, flap sentence, that students have particularly criticised. They suggested that including university-specific resources and contacts would make these materials more useful. Okay, reported opinion. Okay, so you can see there everything that you need to include. Okay, so remember, reported opinions, passive form, cleft sentence, participle clauses, and linking words. Try to get those 5 in each paragraph if possible. All right. So that's all you need to put in your body paragraph. Again, it just depends on the question you get asked, how you kind of lay it out. It's up to you what points you want to include, but make sure you're doing everything the instructions ask of you, okay? Heading on to the next lecture then, we're going to take a look at the final paragraph of your report, which is your recommendations paragraph, okay? So head on over there and I'll see you in a second. Bye.